Okay, you guys, I'm going to preface this with the disclaimer that I'm doped up on Sudafed because one of the residual, lingering effects of coming down with corona is that I have been plagued with congestion and drainage, and in order to try to prevent that from turning into a sinus infection or something, I've been taking Sudafed and Mucinex and Flonase, try to keep things sort of, calmed down. Consequently, the Sudafed makes me a little bit dopey. I'm on the tail end of my dosage for today, so maybe it won't be too bad, but I still feeling a little bit kind of out of it. So I'm going to do the best I can with this. And as always, this is just me talking off the top of my head. I don't think I'm going to make much sense, but I'm just going to try to explain how I intuitively felt about this particular movie that I saw a free screening for online last night. It was originally supposed to be sometime in December, but then they rescheduled it to mid-January. And it's for the movie called Promising Young Woman. So I have mixed feelings about this movie for a variety of reasons. I want to start off the bat with talking about the things that were good about this film. One, the acting. The acting in here was absolutely wonderful. The main actress, I don't know why I didn't delete that picture. I meant to only show pictures from the movie. Anyway, whatever. I think her name is Carey Mulligan. I know I've seen her around in stuff before, but this was the first film that I actually, paid attention to her as an actress because she's the main actor in here. And so I don't feel like I'm super familiar with her stuff. So this felt like an introduction to her, honestly. And I was really impressed with her acting in here. Did not realize that she is a Brit, because she's playing an American, and she did a very good job convincing me that she's from the US. Anyway, so kudos to her for that. She's got that accent down. And her acting was very good. She just played this range of emotions pretty well, I think. Everybody who played in this movie did a wonderful job as far as the acting. So it's anything that I point out in here with regard to the cons about this film for me has nothing to do with the acting. The storytelling with regard to the strength of the plot, not necessarily going to talk right yet about my personal issues with the story, but just the strength of how the story went. That it made sort of logical sense the way things played out. I felt like that was pretty well done. The directing was well done. The pacing felt good. I never really felt like I was bored one moment while I was watching this. I was kind of drawn into it, curious to see how it was going to play out, what was going to happen to the character. So there's that about this film. The premise of the movie, which I probably should have started off with in the beginning, but I'm going to blame the Sudafed for that. Okay, so there will probably be some spoilers in here because I don't think I can touch on some of the things I want to touch on without there being spoilers in here. So basically, the story is she's a character who had been in med school. I think it took 7 years before the events of this movie, and she dropped out for unexplained reasons, which you find out later as the movie goes on. But basically what happened is, and yes, I'm going to lay it out for you. What happened is her character had a very close friend. I mean, super tight. I mean, so tight that I wondered whether there was something more than just regular friendship because of the way she was so deeply affected by what happened to her friend. It seemed to me to go beyond just regular friendship. Made me wonder if there was something else, because her reaction to her years-long reaction and the things that she takes it as part of her responsibility to do as a result of what happened to her friend seem quite over the top for me. But whatever. So something happened to her friend. Basically what happened is her friend she was at a party. They were in, college, med school, at a party, got drunk with a bunch of other people, and the friend ends up getting raped because here's the problem with this scenario. Apparently, as it becomes clear as the story goes on, her friend was very, very drunk, and the guy that was messing with her was also drunk. They were both drunk. I don't know if it was a gang rape type of thing or if it was just a one guy with her and then it was being filmed and people were watching, that sort of thing. And so this, to me, muddies the waters quite a bit, because when you have both parties out of their mind, not in their right mind, and they're engaging in this activity, honestly, I can't go there where a lot of people want to go, where they're like, well, it's rape and it's the guy's fault and he blah, blah, blah. I understand why people go there, but the problem is if both parties involved or all parties involved, if they're, what's the word? If I can't think of the word, Sudafed. Like if they're not acting in their right mind because they're under the influence of mind-altering substances, in this case, alcohol, then it really seems quite irrational to me to only blame one party for what happens. You could just as easily say that perhaps the guy was the one being raped because maybe he was in a blackout state and you don't know what you're doing in a blackout state. So honestly, if you're going to step back and examine it from that angle, how can you really realistically say anybody was raping anybody? I mean, if you're going to say that there was rape, then you'd have to say both people were raping each other because neither one of them knew what the hell they were doing because they were out of their brains. So this is where I had a problem with this story and how I had trouble going along with this narrative that is presented in this story. And something that started to become very apparent to me is that this is a misandrist film, very, very in your face going on. And basically almost all of the males in this story, with the exception of the main character's father, who's just, the father and mother have such bit parts in here. He's not really, doesn't even really, to me, count as a character. I mean, he shows up, he's okay, but he's just there, kind of like her mother. But all of the men in this movie are presented as absolute creeps. There is no man that has redeeming qualities. And the one guy that you think is a good, decent guy, well, you found out, well, he's scum too. So, nobody is good in here. All guys are presented as bad. What she does is she goes to these bars. She acts like she's fallen down drunk. And she goes home with these guys and she's pretending, to be very obviously drunk, and she's protesting. And when it gets to the point where the guy's definitely going to try to, have sex with her, then she kind of, comes around and she just lets them know that she's not drunk and look what you were about ready to do to me and shame on you. And one thing that was quite unrealistic about this scenario is I find it hard to believe that there was not one guy at all that she encountered doing this that didn't get angry with her to the point of being violent. That seemed a little bit off, but it's like all of a sudden they were like, oh, okay, I was a bad boy, you have chastised me, and okay, that sort of thing. That seemed a little bit unrealistic because she is putting herself in a dangerous situation. And I was expecting that it was going to be it's sort of a vigilante-ish film, but she doesn't really physically hurt any of the guys. She just kind of gives them a talking to and scares the crap out of them because all of a sudden she's stone cold sober and it kind of freaks them out. But something else that really got on my nerves is she tallies all these guys that she sets straight in this book, and she's got pages and pages. It's obviously hundreds of guys. So basically pretty much every guy that she goes home with or whatever. None of them, they're all scum. They all try to take advantage of her. 100% of guys are scum, basically. That's kind of the feeling that you're left with when you watch this film. And I did not appreciate that sort of narrative at all, for various reasons that I have expressed before on this channel multiple times. So that was already a strike against it, that I had just a real issue with that portrayal of men. And it's why for that reason, I don't really feel like I want to recommend it, but at the same time, the acting was pretty good. It's kind of a thrillerish type film, and the story flows along pretty good. So there's those pros to it. But to me, the overriding, very heavy-handed anti-male type of propaganda in this film sits badly with me. Like, I don't like that at all. I don't appreciate that at all. There was no balance at all. And so I felt like it was a pretty hateful film, to be honest. Now, yeah, you can say, well, these guys that were trying to mess with her or whatever, yeah, they were not behaving in a very good way. Oh gosh, scared the crap out of me. They were not behaving in a very good way. It just makes you feel like very icky to see the things that are happening. But at the same time, it's kind of presenting you with this sort of narrative that all guys are pigs, no guys can be trusted, no guys are gentlemen. All they want to do is take advantage of a woman as soon as they have the opportunity. And I didn't like that, like I've already said. So that is a problem I had with this. Also, there's stuff that happens at the end, and it kind of, sometimes I thought I could predict where the film was going to go, but then when the climax of the film happens and it goes in a situation that I really was not expecting, I was like, okay. And so when this thing happened, I honestly, because by the time it got to that point, I was a little bit turned off by her character and by just the tone of the film, that when this thing happened, I was just like, okay, whatever. It didn't have that emotional impact with me that I think they were hoping it was going to have. I guess just because of where my mind is when it comes to this sort of propaganda that was going on in this movie. Now, I have read, I was reading an article that was written about this film, and it was talking about how the film is basically drawing on the urban legend, the rampant myth going around that it's just an absolute epidemic of girls in college being raped while they're drunk and all this sort of stuff. But then it delves into this Rolling Stone article that ended up being absolute rubbish, was not even true. And then it talked about another Rolling Stone, I guess, writer that was trying to delve into this subject matter more and couldn't really find any or anything substantial to sort of back up the claim about how you've got guys in college are just, hundreds of women are being raped every day by guys in college at these drunken parties and all this, so it kind of is, this movie is sort of reinforcing a stereotype or an urban myth that is very prevalent, and also it's reinforcing the myth of that there aren't many false accusations of rape, and this 2% number about false accusations has been thrown around a lot, but that's not really that's not been substantiated either. And I think that was traced back to something from 1975. And since then, there have been multiple studies which have, the studies where they go in and they're analyzing the cases and the statistics and all this stuff, that the number of false rape accusations range anywhere from about 8 to 10% to upwards of 40%. So that's a huge number. And I think that you know, to me, that is really such a significant number that it really should give people pause when they just automatically want to believe the claims that someone makes about sexual assault or whatever. And see, here's the problem. Because there are so many false rape or false assault accusations, it makes it to where it sort of delegitimizes actual real accusations, because sometimes you don't know, if it's just a he said, she said, you don't necessarily know who you can believe. And I know there's been this claim going around that you should believe all women, but no, I'm sorry, that's a foolish thing to do. You can't really believe all women, because not all women are being truthful about things, especially when they've got a vindictive nature and they want to get back at somebody. So it's just, there's just a lot of nuance here with this subject matter. It's not necessarily a black and white sort of issue, because every situation is different. And there's just a lot of gray area when it comes to two people and the things that they do with each other when they're drunk. That's because it's kind of the scenario that is at play here in this particular movie. So something that I was thinking about when I was watching this film also is, so I was thinking about Wonder Woman 1984 when I was watching this, because I saw a lot of claims being thrown around about Wonder Woman and how it was man-hating, man-bashing. It was this very heavy political type agenda, sort of anti-Trump, anti-whatever. It was this is very heavy-handed sort of thing. And it was just, okay, but see, here's the problem with that. Now, people can have their issues with the storyline and how it goes, but when they were trying to lay that sort of narrative on it, and I had heard little rumblings about it before I went to go see the movie, but I didn't look into anything in depth. And I did talk about this in my review of Wonder Woman, so I go there sort of aware that this was a possibility, that there was going to be a heavy-handed type of propaganda, sort of anti-male, feminist sort of narrative. And I remember when I saw the first movie, I was very worried about that happening, because I knew that this was a movie that could really lay that on. And I was very, very happy to see that in the first movie, that was not really a thing. And I was so grateful to Patty Jenkins for being able to present her in a way that was very fair. And she wasn't a feminist type. She wasn't anti-male, anti-man. It was about the two working together to achieve this common good, things like that. So I really appreciated that. But then, because of the things I had heard before I went to go see the second movie, I was concerned, but I didn't read into anything in depth. I saw the movie. I go to the movie aware of this possibility. So I was looking for it, specifically looking for it. And honestly, you guys, it wasn't there. The anti-male stuff was not there. I heard a lot of people claiming multiple times, it's like they're kind of reading from the same script. They were claiming all of the guys in here were portrayed as creepy. All of the guys in here were bad. The bank robbers, not the bank robbers, the jewelry store robbers, they were all men. Well, really? I mean, a lot of times in movies where there's theft going on, it's mostly men. Like I've mentioned before in some other comment section, almost all the bad guys in a James Bond movie are guys. Why is this suddenly somehow an issue when there's some jewelry store or store robbers and they're guys? I did not see that as an issue at all. And no, not all of the men in Wonder Woman were portrayed as, but even among the store robbers, not all of them were absolutely awful. There was one guy who was portrayed as really terrible because he picked up a child and he was threatening to throw the child. The others who were involved in the robbery with him, they were like, no, don't. So to me, that they even had some redeeming qualities, even though they're, robbers, whatever. And even the main villain, Max Lord, and I did specifically talk about this, that in Wonder Woman 1984, the bad guy characters felt more nuanced to me. They had more depth to them than the bad guy characters in the first movie. They were more sympathetic. Even Max Lord, with everything that he did, he came across to me as a sympathetic person. You kind of could sort of see where he was coming from and why he was doing the things that he was doing, and how kind of tormented he was in a lot of ways. The same thing with Cheetah. She was a character that you could sympathize with. I mean, that was one thing that I really appreciated about the second Wonder Woman was the bad guy characters, and how they were people that had they were just more than just one-dimensional type characters, as opposed to the bad guys in the first Wonder Woman. They were more one-dimensional. But another claim that I saw being made was, oh, all the guys were creeps, the creepy guys who were trying to come on to Diana. This is how creepy this was. They didn't come across as creepy to me. They just came across, they just came across as guys who wanted her attention. Kind of like Barbara was wanting the attention of people around her too, but why was she not deemed creepy? Because she was wanting people to pay attention to her. So, hold on a minute. Anyway, so I just, as far as that whole stuff with the claims about Wonder Woman 1984 being just feminist propaganda, anti-male, and all, just so terrible, and and these are things that I notice. These are things that I look out for. These are things I was specifically looking out for when I went to see that movie, and it just wasn't there. So, as opposed to this particular movie, where it is right in your face, there are no redeeming male characters in here, and it's just, there was just that huge contrast to me. So it just kind of, it's frustrating to see a narrative about a film being presented as if it's so, and then a bunch of people buying into that because maybe that's what they're wanting it to be like. But then when you try to explain, it's not really like that. And then you have a film like this, which is very much like that. And it's just, I don't know, just these were the things that were running through my mind when I saw it. Also, there's a character that Alfred Molina plays. He plays an attorney who defended this character from this rape allegation. And the purpose of a defense attorney is to defend their client. So it kind of, and I understand that people just, they don't like defense attorneys because, defense attorneys a lot of times will get bad guys off. But that is their job. And the reason they exist is to also be a protection for innocent people who are falsely accused of crimes they did not commit. You want a good defense attorney on your side if you haven't done something that you're accused of doing. But this attorney was presented as, oh, what a horrible person he had been to defend his clients. And, the scenario of what happened, I can see why a defense attorney would be defending their clients from something like this. The victim, her friend, had never filed a police report. She had gone to the dean of the school, or she had gone to the people who were, whatever, of the school. And they didn't believe her story because I think the dean or something was saying something like, do you know how many people get accused? Again, feeding into that myth of this being a rampant problem on college campuses. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know if I've made much sense, but it was something that I wanted to get off my chest before too much time had passed since I had seen this movie. So, like I said, it's just a lot of mixed feelings about this. And I've been looking for people to point this out in their reviews, and there's just not a lot of that happening. It's mostly, oh, I love this film. This is so great. This revenge and vigilante, and this is so awesome. And she just really is sticking it to these guys. And it's just, so, oh, in this scene right here, she's in her car. The scene where it's showing her on the road, she's in her car. She wasn't moving when the light at the light or the stop sign or whatever. She wasn't moving. So a guy gets mad at her. That's understandable, right? I mean, she's not moving. He comes around beside her, he pulls up beside her, and he's yelling at her, and he's being rude and vulgar and everything. She gets out and she bangs the ever-loving crap out of his vehicle, you know, and then he runs off because he's all scared because she's banged up his vehicle. But she was being an idiot in the middle of the road, not moving. So why are we supposed to, I just felt like it was so over the top, her reaction to that. She was having like this, whatever, mental disconnect or something like that. But even that guy he was just so over the top about what happened in that scene. And then she goes and she bangs the mess out of his car, and you're supposed to be like, yes, go girl. And I'm thinking, you're an idiot. I don't like you very much when you are doing this sort of stuff, because I can understand why he got mad at you. You know, it's just the whole tone of this film. It's just, I don't know. It's not anything that I'm ever going to be interested to see again. And like I said, I really hesitate to suggest the film because of how overpowering this absolutely horrendous narrative was to me. So, I don't know. I don't want to say don't watch it, but it's hard for me to recommend it because of how completely warped it felt to me as far as the portrayal of men in general in this film. And I do notice this sort of thing. And when it just jumps out at you on the from the screen and smacks you over the head with its heavy-handedness, it's just kind of a constant. It's just not something that I appreciate. And I felt like that this movie would have been a little bit better served introducing more of that gray area that I feel is important to balance out stuff like this. Yeah, there are situations of assault that's definitely black and white issue, but the situations presented in this movie, especially with regard to what happened to her friend, was way too much gray area. And it just wasn't something I could go along with very easily without thinking to myself, well, look, everybody was stupid and out of their brain, drunk. To me, that just introduces a complication that makes it not so black and white. And so because that sort of situation or that sort of narrative wasn't really introduced in here, and well, it sort of kind of was, but not really to the extent that it should have been in order to make this something that would be more balanced in tone. So you would know it when you see it, I guess, if you guys end up wanting to watch, or if you end up watching this film. I don't want you not to watch it just because I've said that it's not really a film that I can recommend. Obviously, check it out if you feel like you want to, like maybe it's just me because I am very tuned in to this sort of thing that goes on. I just can't appreciate this as a whole. There were those elements that, like I pointed out, that were very good, but because of the heavy-handed anti-men sort of narrative going on in here, this is something that has completely tarnished the film for me. And so I can't really appreciate it to the extent that I think the director was hoping it would be appreciated. But anyway, so that's just a bunch of, I don't know, talking in circles, trying to explain how I feel. I hope I've done sort of a halfway decent job. I have no clue, but I feel like I've talked forever. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up for now, you guys. Adios.